All right, hello, friends, and welcome back to the Gaming Dad Fujo podcast, episode number 11, being recorded May 15th, 2023. This is impromptu, quick recording because we have some interesting gaming news to talk about. That's about what we've been playing recently. I am Fujosevic, your host. As a reminder, former professional Hearthstone player. Currently, I'm working as an analytical chemist in the pharmaceutical industry. This is a place where I kind of talk about all the things that we used to talk about when I was streaming and uploading videos and all sorts of stuff. And today we will be talking about official hardcore classic WoW servers. They're coming out very, very soon. We'll get through the details and dissect it and talk about it because it's going to be super exciting. We're going to talk about the Toronto Maple Leafs getting eliminated from the Stanley Cup playoffs because I'm a Toronto-based guy and we do that. Tears of the Kingdom, Legend of Zelda is out. We will very briefly talk about that. And we've been getting into a lot of AI topics here on the old podcast, and we're going to talk about some chat GPT, social media powered influencer making some massive money. Let's get started. He's got no time to play video games. He's the gaming dad, Fujo. Nailed it. All right, and of course with the usual housekeeping, you can find us on YouTube right here, or you can find us wherever you find your podcasts other than on iTunes, and we will fix that sooner than later. But for now, we're still basically Spotify and the other places. So today, the major reason that we're getting together to talk about is the announcement that there will be official hardcore classic WoW servers. This was announced by Blizzard at the end of the Hardcore All-Stars Dungeon Run stream. And they announced that the servers will be coming live, as they say, quote unquote, later this summer. They said the PTR, public test realm, will be available within the next couple weeks, which they admitted is a lot sooner than people probably expected. And that's going to allow people to see the full rule set. So the current hardcore server is run basically through an add-on that restricts auction houses, mailboxes, grouping dungeon runs only once. Dungeon boosting is basically impossible. No PvP, no battlegrounds, things like that. And the great thing about this being on the PTR is that it's open to everyone. It's not some beta. It's not a closed beta. It's not put your name into a hat and hope your name gets pulled out. It's everyone can go and do it, which is going to be fantastic. They didn't give any details about any of those things that we just talked about, but we will. We're going to speculate because obviously that's what we're here to do. And that's what we're all here to do, right? But they did say basically, there's only two major things. The one major thing that they did, the one detail they did give is it's once you are dead, you cannot res under any circumstance. That's basically the rule of hardcore servers, right? That's the idea. You have one life. They did say that you'll be able to come back as a ghost and interact. And they said that is partially for some logistical reasons, right? If you're a guild leader, you have to pass guild leadership on to the next person, and hopefully it's someone you've known and built a relationship with, and when you make a new character, they can transfer it back, or, it's their turn until their character eventually dies, that sort of thing. And then, of course, you can come back, log back on, and let people know who didn't see you, who weren't online when your character died, anything like that. So that makes sense. The one thing they did comment is they've obviously the Blizzard did say they've been watching and participating in the hardcore server community, and they said they did not want to be quote unquote prescriptive, easy for me to say, on how you choose to play. So basically all those lists of those things, the auction house, the mailboxes, the grouping, all that. It seems like there will probably be less restrictions. So everyone, I know there's a lot of speculation already, people freaking out, how dare they allow auction house? People say, how can they not allow auction house? Of course, there's never going to be a consensus. You can feel however you want about those things. And they said because this hardcore mode was very driven as a player-based movement at its core, they want to let the players decide. So they're going to have one life for sure. And it sounds like there will be, they've admitted probably less restrictions. The other feature that was discussed, we'll dissect some of that in a second, is the one feature is that they're going to have a duel to the death. Normally in WoW, you duel, right? You target someone, you can right-click on their name or type /duel, and you duel and the fight stops when someone's at 1 hit point, 1 health. But instead of duel, we're going to have what you can start with a slash command of /Makagura, and it's a duel to the death, where the losing person has the same one life is now done. So that's kind of, that's super, super high stakes. We know this is built for streamers, for content creators, people who want to risk it and get some views in the meantime. I'm hoping there are ways. Obviously, I'm sure this will be able to happen wherever you want, but I'm hoping there's also a central place where there can actually be people watching. I know in the old EverQuest servers, people would actually watch some of these big PvP tournaments, and when the stakes are this high, it'd be really cool to do that, to actually watch it in game. And I know, trust me, if I was streaming it on Twitch, I'd want you to come log on to my Twitch and Twitch Prime and subscribe and gift 12 subs and that sort of thing. I would want that too. I know, of course I would. Like and subscribe to this video right now, rate us 5 stars, all that fun stuff. But if I'm sure there will be Makagura tournaments at level 20, at level 40. I'm sure level 60s of who have rated this will be very, very cool, very intense, and lots of eyeballs. And we'll talk more about the eyeball thing, why this is so good and has picked up so much steam in a bit. But it's also interesting, the whole Makagura thing. There's this is a duel of honor thing in WoW lore. We've seen a bunch. Historically, there's been Garrosh versus Cairn, Thrall versus Garrosh, Sorfang versus Sylvanas. Lots of cool stuff. There's a couple other things that I know instantly comes up with one life. There's a couple quests you can't really do in WoW. The BRD key, and then Lincoln's quest. Both require you to actually die to interact to progress the storyline of that quest. And now there's going to be workarounds. Those are just two quick examples that come to the front of mind with this. There's easy workarounds. There's other items in WoW that allow you to interact with ghosts and things like that. And I'm sure it'll just be like a simple thing like that. There's the one quest in Thousand Needles that requires you to jump off of a very high place. And if the game bugs out, your character will die. Like, the quest is supposed to stop you before you hit the ground, but sometimes it doesn't. But sometimes, honestly, it doesn't, and that would stink. And people, I've been online on the hardcore servers now, where people have just skipped the quest because they're like, I'm not going to risk it. People, oh no, you can do it, trust me. And then you get the death alert, and everyone's throwing out their Fs in the chat. So it's kind of interesting to see how some of these quests will be handled. Because obviously, like I said, BRD key and Lincoln's quest cannot be done. Like the Thousand Needles one, like it's supposed to save you, but sometimes it doesn't. And normally it's fine. That stinks, and you have to run your ghost, but you can't run your ghost back to your corpse anymore. So that's kind of where we're at. And now let's dissect a little bit. So Blizzard said they don't want to be prescriptive of how you choose to play. So part of the add-on, the current hardcore add-on iteration of Hardcore Classic WoW, some people will argue it's also Iron Man because you can only use what you get yourself. True. But in order to maintain the integrity of the current hardcore server, because it's on a regular server, you could just level up a level 60 on your own and then farm and buy a bunch of green pieces of armor for level 10. And it's very easy if you have full greens at level 10. And then you can get some BOEs at level 20 and level 30 and level 40 and send yourself all the cloth that you could possibly need in power level, all of your professions and all that stuff. So the current add-on is definitely to kind of preserve that integrity, but there's also a collective struggle in the hardcore community, right? Where it's like everyone is going through this same thing. So we can all only run a dungeon once. We all have this like constant threat of death looming over us at all times. And it's really cool with the add-on where there's an alert server, well, guild-wide, but basically everyone who joins will want to join a guild, and they're all connected through the add-on, where you can see anyone who dies, and you get the alert of like, Fujosevic died at level 27 fighting whatever. His last words were this. It's really, really cool. So in order to preserve the integrity, I think, if you have low-level items being sold and traded in mailbox and, mailed back and forth, if you have a low-level item that has the fiery weapon enchant, it really takes away from the challenge of the early game. Because that fiery weapon enchant's going to help you just as a rogue or a warrior or a shaman, whatever. Any melee class, put it on my mage at level 10. It's going to really help. You know what I mean? It's going to really help. So some things like that, and of course that's in WoW. That's in original WoW. So well, if this is supposed to be more like original classic, but just with that rule of one life, then sure, it's going to be in there. And it's going to be interesting to see. It probably will split some people in some ways, would prefer it one way or the other. And here you're given the option. Here's an official server. If you want to just load up the add-on and add the kind of the Iron Man rules, you'll probably still be able to do that. And if you want to just be trading, I just fear that I don't want to say easy because I don't have a level 60 yet, aside from Gaming Dad, not enough time. And then also I've had a couple silly deaths. I ran off a Zeppelin in my level 20s, which again is a significant amount of time. If that character had still been going now, that rogue would be level high 40s with how much other time I've spent on the game. But it's a challenge to see how much is allowed. And then obviously Battlegrounds. If there's obviously right now the way it works, any death is still counting. Will instanced Battlegrounds be allowed? That's an interesting one for me, and kind of will determine what class I want to play. I'm thinking I might want to do Shaman, and I know I did Shaman on Classic originally. Mage is probably my favorite class. I might do Mage because it's so much fun. But again, if we're allowed to group with other people, and I can just ask a Mage, hey, can you just teleport me to Undercity? Maybe I don't need, and I love Mage. I think Mage gameplay, I think Mage and Shaman, if I could have two, that would be it. But we'll see. We'll see how the grouping is allowed. We'll see how the dungeon running is allowed and the PvP battlegrounding is allowed. That's probably where we're gonna stand. And we're gonna see. And then the other reason is, if I'm going to have my Gaming Dad hours, I kind of want a healing class. I don't want to be warrior. There's a lot of warriors. So I think, let me take a healer. I'll be able to find my dungeons quickly. There's a lot of warriors out there who will want to run dungeons. I'll be able to heal. Mostly if I do plan on raiding. If I'm playing this, I am going to raid. I will get through Molten Core once. I will get attuned and get into Molten Core, and we'll see how far we can go. That is 100% the goal. Right now, my gaming setup, I'm not able to record. So I don't know how we're going to be sharing that, but I'll figure it out by the time we get there, because it's a long way off, because WoW is not a quick thing. We know that for sure. So I think that's it for the speculation. There's no need to worry about all these details. It's interesting. It's interesting to see where they're going to land. So what do I think? I think, to me, auction housing could be fine. I think the mailbox becomes the bigger issue, because if I'm allowed to mailbox, I'm going to make my character, my Fujosevich Shaman. I'm going to make my Fujosevich probably also Priest. If I'm focused 100%, I'm gonna raid and heal. Those will be my two classes. I'll have one of them always fully rested experience, right? Then I'm gonna run a third character over to a mailbox, and then anytime I'm about to go questing on my Shaman, let me send over all my gold. Let me send over all my extra leather, my cloth, my whatever. Ooh, I found some tigers. I haven't made my engineer gloves yet. Let me make sure if that Shaman goes, my next one can make their engineering gloves at level 10 or whatever the case is. I think the mailbox becomes a really big, if we're looking at like quote unquote integrity. Yes, the auction house, like I said, you can sell weapons with enchant and stuff. You can sell, you can get fully kitted out in level 10 greens, and the Barons is going to be a lot easier. Trust me, you should be going to the Barons at like level 13, 14 if you're doing you do at least 2 starting zones anyways, especially in hardcore, because you want to go as much higher level, over leveled as possible. You want to go farm the coal cars and all of the centaurs and stuff. I know that's a really nitpicky like leveling routing detail, but we can talk about that later. We can talk about that later if people want, because I've been through it a bit. A lot of theory crafting and actually doing it. Okay, unrelated to hardcore. Let's keep moving through this now. We spent a bit of time on hardcore. That's our prediction. I think the mailbox is the integrity issue. Otherwise, I'm assuming they're going to let auction houses. I'm assuming they're going to allow open world grouping. I'm assuming they're going to allow multiple dungeon running. Or maybe a one-day dungeon lockout could also be a reasonable compromise. I kind of like the concept. Just the last thing on this. For the dungeon running, if we as characters have one life, then the bosses also have one life. It's not... if you're gonna live in this, suspend disbelief and live in this, hardcore WoW world, you can't just go and kill Edwin Van Cleef 8 times in a single day. But then the second he kills you, you're done. It's kind of interesting the way if it goes both ways, then you only have one chance to get your really good staff, your really cool cruel barbs. I think is in the Dead Mines for that example, right? For all your melee classes. So I think those are the big predictions. And again, there's no need to get worked up over it. It's fun. Don't get me wrong. It's super fun. I've been thinking about this. Fujoso Miss has heard all about this back and forth 14 times. She's done with hearing about me talk about it. It's super fun to speculate. Blizzard told us we're gonna have the PTR in a couple weeks. A couple weeks goes by like a snap of a finger. We're already there. I'm basically gonna log on the second this is done. It's here, almost here. So there's no need to worry about it. We're gonna find out the full details, and then we can complain and say this is great, this is horrible as we go. But again, you're coming to Gaming Diet Fujo, you're going to find a positive, reasonable kind of type of response from all of this stuff. Non-hardcore, they did say there's going to be another Season of Era. It will be fresh. They're not going to call it Season of Mastery. They refuse to call it Season of Mastery. If you go watch the clip, it's kind of interesting. This is interesting also, the way they talked about it. There is, I think, potential. I never liked the idea of Classic Plus. Oh, let's have something after Nax Rammus. Well, if you go onto Era servers now and you go to PvP and someone has full Nax gear, it's not fun to be in Warsong Gulch with them. It's really not if you're a fresh level 60 and they're fully Naxed out of their minds. It's a little bit tough. So maybe this is how they start trying Classic Plus. Say, hey, this season you're gonna go through regular. You're gonna get your Molten Core, you're gonna get your AQ, GG, wherever it is. BWL. You're gonna get your Nax, and then after Nax, we're gonna have a new one that they, the WoW team then will have to develop. And then maybe Season 3 has a different thing after Nax. Could be interesting. Could be an interesting way. And then in 10 years, the anniversary, and then they have all of them, or so. I don't know. It could be very, very interesting the way they do that. That's my prediction. The seasons will be an interesting way for them to start trialing Classic Plus content. Last thing on the WoW world. Sunday, May 14th, yesterday from the time this was recorded and probably uploaded, was the first ever hardcore AQ40 took place. The number of deaths? 0. Absolutely amazing. I actually happened to be online when they did the Twin Emps and Cthulhu. I saw both of those. Those were incredible. It was massive coordination. There's 40 people in the raid. They said there was about 40 people out of the raid helping them travel after Twin Emps. They left. They rebuffed. Basically, they redid all of their world buffs. Massive effort with all the prep for consumables, for enchants, all of that stuff. Because again, they're playing with only trading within their guild and helping each other out. So you need people then to log on. I'm just going to farm a bunch of, thorium today. I'm going to get a bunch of whatever the high level leather is. I don't even know what it is off the top of my head. I've never done high level. I've never done really skinning other than early game. But we'll talk about that again, details of in Classic when we start talking about routing. Early game routing. I'm experienced there, not the late game routing, not the raiding. But that's okay, we'll get there. So that was super cool. It's cool to know that it can be done. And obviously, eventually, maybe we'll get that Nax run hardcore. We'll see. Okay, second topic. Second topic's going to be non-gaming related. Sorry, everyone. I'll try and be quicker. But I'm a Canadian. I'm a good old Canadian boy. Toronto-ish based, at least Toronto sports based. We talk about the Toronto sports teams all the time. Toronto Maple Leafs eliminated from Stanley Cup playoffs. This is also my audition to all the sports networks. If they need another online personality for their hot takes, we know I don't do hot takes, but that's okay. Let's see what happened. The Leafs lost Game 5 of the second round. They're out. They went down 3-0. Very few teams ever come back in a best-of-7 series. So I grew up watching hockey, playing hockey. I was a big hockey fan. My problem now with the NHL is there's basically 2 seasons. There's the regular 2 games of hockey. There's the regular season and there's playoffs. And they're different brands of hockey, basically. And I don't mind. I like that the playoffs is a tough hockey. It's tough. It's truculent. That's a good hockey word, is truculent, right? The problem is the current iteration of the Toronto Maple Leafs have 4 highly skilled players who are making a lot of the salary cap money, who don't particularly play that brand of truculent hockey. Now, you don't have to. If you say who are the best players of recent time, Sidney Crosby is absolutely one of the best living players and is still playing in recent time. He was dominant. I don't know for how many years was he the best player. Him and Ovechkin, you can always challenge which of the 2 was the best. Sidney Crosby didn't play a rough, tough style of hockey, but you couldn't push him around. And my fear is too many of the current top Leafs get a little bit pushed around in the playoffs. Now, I know they're doing a lot of their exit interview stuff today. It's probably going to come out a bunch of these players were injured and 5 fought through a broken wrist and 3 of my fingers were I get it. Hockey players are tough as nails. 100%, just so we're clear. Let me preface all of what I'm about to say with that. Hockey players are tough as nails. No matter if you make it there into the NHL, you are your top-notch level athlete on the planet. But I just have such a hard time with the inconsistent penalties where, you say, oh, something is holding because I'm grabbing my opponent's stick. In the regular season, that whistle gets blown immediately. For the Leafs, on the last play that ended their season, the Leafs defenseman's stick was held the entire way in the defending zone. They couldn't actually make a play because their stick was being held by a Florida player. And it's like, well, sure, you can complain about that, and that's reasonable to complain about. You can complain about the goal that we've seen a ton of angles that the Leafs did score. Sorry, NHL. The Leafs did score. That was called a no goal. You can complain about all those things. The issue is the series should never have come down to Game 5, losing in Game 5, down 3-1. The Leafs were, on paper, the more skilled team, the better team. I think they demonstrated that, but there were a couple serious mental lapses. Look at me getting all hockey terminology. Oh, I definitely got to get a job at a sports channel at some point here. Look at this, is a great resume. We got to put this all on the resume when I send in my audition tapes. Okay? The Leafs had a couple mental lapses, physical lapses. And you say, well, where does that go to? Does that go to the coach? Does it go to the GM? I think everyone, myself included, love a lot of the moves that the GM did at the trade deadline. They got a lot tougher at the trade deadline. We mentioned this, again, that's why I'm talking about the Leafs so much. We talk about the Toronto sports teams. Don't worry, we're going to switch to baseball pretty soon. It's going to be all Vladimir Guerrero talk pretty soon. The thing is, there's 4 main players that are eating up a lot of cap salary. And if you move one of them, I'm just going to pick on one. Again, I think Mitch Marner, fantastic, incredibly skilled player, should be able to win multiple Stanley Cups in his career because he's that absolutely skilled and electric of a player. I think if you put him on a team like Florida is built right now, he would do very well because he'd be protected and he wouldn't be getting run at. Sure, people might mess with him once, but there's a lot of other tough guys who will be on the ice at the same time as Mitch who can keep up with him. And then also the next shift and the shift after that, so that when Mitch comes back on the ice 2 minutes later, he's not going to get messed with nearly as much. But the problem is right now with our Leafs, he's able to get pushed around. All of our big players are able to get pushed around a little bit from the outside, from what it seems. And it's just, there needs to be a massive shake. I mean, I bring this up again. I always try to bring up topics that I know we'll come back to. The Leafs are going to have to overhaul something. At least I'm saying at least one of the 4 is 100% gone. Think about how much you get back. You get $12 million cap space back for Mitch Marner. You can get 3 or 4 of these big boys who can skate. They're not going to have the skill and the puck handling and the soft hands and the Twitch streaming and the wakeboarding and the stack of dimes for a neck that Mitch Marner has. But you're going to get a bunch of tough, young, controllable, meaner guys who are not going to get pushed around in the playoffs. And we're going to see. We're going to see what happens. We're going to see who they're able to re-sign. Ryan O'Reilly, you got to find basically younger Ryan O'Reillys. That's what is built to win the playoffs. And that's all we're going to say. We're going to follow up on it. The Leafs are going to have massive shakeup. If it's not also upper management, it's definitely going to be players, coaches, basically everyone there kind of unfortunately has to go. They've had so many chances. They've had so many tries. Unfortunately, at this point, things have to change. And if it doesn't, guess what? We're going to be right back here next year. I basically I only watch a bit in the playoffs. I follow along. It's hard for me to watch a whole game with my Gaming Dad schedule, as we always talk about. And then it gets frustrating when I do watch and I'm like, oh yeah, this is why I don't commit anything emotionally. But when the team has just been going this long and continuing to not progress, I think it's probably time to shake up. You're not changing, you're not blowing it up and trading everyone for prospects and picks. No, that's not happening. I'm saying it's time to retool. You're keeping 2 of the 4, you're shipping out 2 of the 4, and you're going to build a rougher, tougher team around them to support them so that they have more space to do their highly, incredibly skilled things that they are paid very well to do. That's it. We're moving on from the Leafs. Next thing, Tears of the Kingdom, Legend of Zelda is out. Oh, yes, it is. I still don't have it. What a spoiler. What a surprise, I should say. This is the review that I got from my cousin. Said that Breath of the Wild looks like proof of concept when compared to what they've seen from Tears of the Kingdom. My little cousin came over Saturday morning. The playtime was checked on the Switch, 8.5 hours. So little cousin comes home from school. But when you come home from elementary school, like let's say 4 o'clock, between then and then noon the next day, 8.5 hours. That's good. That's good gaming. That's prime gaming. So you get 4 or 5 hours Friday night, 3-4 hours in the morning, Saturday morning. Pretty good. This is definitely hearing that Breath of the Wild is proof of concept makes me even more intimidated with this game. Like I already was hearing the few things that I've heard about it. It's also, I'm worried about the time available to play both this and Hardcore Classic WoW. But again, once we have a little bit more insight on the PTR and when we're going to expect Hardcore Classic WoW, we'll figure out if we're just going to get the game now or we wait a year. Because guess what? I didn't get Breath of the Wild on day one either. I waited a long time and I stayed away from the spoilers. And it was, and the other good thing is, let's say we get both. That's fine. We can play them both slowly. Both these games can be played at your own pace. It's fantastic that way because you can. Obviously, Zelda's offline. You do whatever you want. Hardcore, there's always someone dying and needing to re-level and all that stuff. So I think it's totally fine. It'll just slow me down in my rating, but we will get there. Okay, last topic of the day. Okay, this is an interesting one. AI-powered ChatGPT social media influencer. What is the number that I have here? Let me pull this up. Made $72,000 in 1 week. Now, let's be honest. That's the YouTube, Twitch, podcasting money that I'm looking for right now. Sponsorships, Coca-Cola, are you out there? Gatorade, are you out there? Pepsi, Britney, leave Britney. I've always been Team Britney. Okay, I'm happy to take that Pepsi sponsorship. Levi jeans, or do they do a lot for cars? Does someone need to buy a truck? I don't know. We'll see. We're looking for our sponsorship deals though. So this is a company called Forever Voices who based an AI social media entity off of a 23-year-old Snapchat star, which is easy for me to say. And they named this account Karen AI. And what they offered was $1 for 1 minute of interaction, which is really, really silly. So one of the things that this company claimed was that Karen AI was not designed for not safe for work conversations. The original intention was to provide companionship and alleviate loneliness in a non-exploitative manner. Okay, so you're talking about $60 an hour to chat to a bot not being exploitative? That's ridiculous. Okay, this is absolutely wild. There's a lot of these AI bots that are already out there. You could probably do this for free. I know that there's a bunch of names that I'm not going to rattle off here. You can look them up very easily. It's really, really weird. About the not safe for work conversations. Apparently people already worked around that because it's the internet and people are kind of weird and creepy and awful sometimes. And then of course, every time we talk, like, just so we're clear, that number is wild. $71,000 in 1 week. And they have 1.8 million followers. That's, when they do the math, they said like if 1% of the 1.8 million followers, they could potentially make it up to 5 mil per month. I think that's just because this was ramping up. That's how they extrapolated the math. If people are staying more, getting more involved. But again, every time we talk about these AI things, there's always this consideration of how good for you socially is this? How good for us in a societally is this? That we're forming connections with what is effectively an AI machine learning program. And again, I know once the robots rise up, I keep saying this every time we talk about it. Once the robots come up, I'm going to be I'm going to be really close to number one on the hit list. So that's going to be a problem for me. But it raises some serious, other than the exploitation that's obviously going on, charging people $1 just to talk with this thing. Now, don't get me, there was a lot of work put into this. I'm sure this company put in a lot of effort in order to model. What did they say? They did 2,000, they analyzed 2,000 hours of this young girl's YouTube content to build this personality engine using ChatGPT, and then allowed this personality engine to respond. It's definitely exploitative of people who are going, like, it's fun to mess around with some of these AIs, to ask them. Trust me, I mess around with ChatGPT. Quick side story. I've never been able to get ChatGPT to agree that Jar Jar Binks is a Jedi or a Sith, which I think is absolutely ridiculous, and there's something wrong in the coding of ChatGPT because, come on, I think we all see the evidence both ways, to be honest. I think a very strong argument could be made both ways, and I agree with both of them. Somehow Jar Jar did both. It's fun to play with these technologies, but it's also scary. It's a scary, scary world we're going into with all of these things. And again, it's what does this do for social interaction when your best friend becomes an AI program that's interacting with you based on some personality algorithms, based on response algorithms? I don't know. I don't know. It's a scary world we're moving into. It's an interesting one. Like I said, I think we're probably always going to be finding interesting different AI. We talked about the gaming AI. I want to find another gaming AI for next time, for next week, for next podcast. We'll talk about another gaming AI story like we did in episode. What is this? Is episode 11, so that'd be episode 10. We talked about a really cool one, right? They did a ChatGPT based off of in a Sims type of world, gaming scenario. So yeah, I think that's going to be the plan. So that's going to be it. Actually, that'll be the end of that. We're just going to end that topic. It's just amazing numbers for revenue. It's a wild world we're moving into, and I want to thank everyone who made it this far. Like I said, hey, hit that like button, share, and comment. Let me know how you're doing, what you're gaming, rate and review, all that fun stuff on Spotify. Thanks everyone for hanging out. The plan moving forward, we'll do a little housekeeping at the end if you're still here. Probably going to be moving into podcast every other week. It'll be every other Tuesday, but again, we haven't set which Tuesday is going to be the first one for that, but that'll be coming within a month. We'll have figured out which Tuesdays is our Tuesday day. I was going to say at first the first and third Tuesday of every month. I was told that can get confusing. So we're just going to do every other. 52 weeks in a year, so we'll just go every other. That's every other Tuesday. We'll have a podcast starting sometime soon, but for now, I hope you all stay safe, be good to each other, and we will talk very, very soon. Bye-bye.